Now it's
stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Basting?
Here.
Bush?
Here.
Dolphin?
Here.
Gunlaw? Hay?
Here.
Steffes?
Here.
Stevenson?
here.
And Kelly did email me today saying that she didn't think she was going to make it tonight. All right. Ready to recognitions?
All right, I'd like to welcome some of our students from the Delta Kappa Gamma Literary Competition. I think they're out in the hallway gathering.
Come on in.
Welcome, come on in.
Come on in.
Thanks for coming tonight. So we have an amazing group of students here that submitted some of their literary works, and many of them won some amazing recognition. So I'd like to share publicly some of our accomplishments. In third grade, Faye Schutte took first place in illustration, Josie Dunn second place in literary, and Lily Haudecker took second place in illustration. In fourth grade, we had Kaylee Biddick that took second place in a literary work. Ella Wilson took second place in illustration. In fifth grade, Gavin Haudecker placed first for illustration and second for his literary work. Claire Steffes took a third place in literary, and Jaden Swinart as an honorable mention for illustration. And in sixth grade, Reagan Schutte placed first in literary and illustration for her work as well. So this is an amazing group of students, and they're led by Miss Bennett, who is not able to be with us tonight, but we just want to recognize you because you did a fantastic job. You represent Mineral Point so well, and we're very proud of you, so congratulations. Well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. Nice job, huh?
Congratulations. Congratulations, Reagan. There's a t-shirt for you. Congratulations, Dave. Might be a little big, might have a pattern on the hand, but.
And I believe next is FFA, is that correct?
Yes.
Is Katie and Morgan here? Katie. Just Katie. Welcome. Hi, Mr. Robinson.
Hello.
Would you be willing to share with us a little bit of the good news from the FFA world?
Sure. Things are going great. Here to honor Katie tonight. She's going to be moving on to our state competition. In FFA, the only way to move on to the next level is to be first. So she was first in our sectionals, was first also before that in the district, and now on to state. And if she's first at state, she'll move on to the national competition. And we have big hopes for that, and I think she'll be able to accomplish her goal.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Come on over there. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you.
She was in prepared speaking. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Prepared speaking, and her topic is on deals with agriculture and social media.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Next is our Herb Cole Fellowship Scholarship winners. All right, welcome Chris McCoy and Arlen King. So I'd like to congratulate both of you. The Herb Cole Foundation has been a good source of recognition for teachers and students across the state for many years. We've been very fortunate to have a few Cole nominees and an occasional winner over our history, but this year we have both a teacher and a student, which is an amazing thing. I don't know if that's ever happened, so that's very, very exciting. So Ms. McCoy was awarded the Teacher Fellowship, and there are, I think, $10,000 scholarships for the Student Scholarship as well. So $6,000 for teachers, $10,000 for students that are being awarded by past Senator Herb Cole, and there will be an upcoming recognition and celebration coming up this Saturday already, right? So we're looking forward to joining you at that celebration. I'll see you again shortly. And it's a nice day to recognize some of the great accomplishments and works of our students and teachers. So congratulations on one of the highest honors that we can bestow.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's exactly. And is Allison here? Okay, I'd like to recognize Allison Chitwood. She qualified for the state spelling bee that's in Madison on March 24th. So that she qualified at the sectional that was held at Highland. And she was obviously our winner here locally in the middle school. So congratulations to Allison for being our spelling bee champion. I think next we're going to skip that. We're going to come back to that. We have a couple other just recognitions that were late additions today. The first is I'd like to recognize the Mineral Point Gridiron Club. They made a donation just recently for $22,000 to support the lighting on the stadium field. So I want to personally thank the Gridiron Club for their continued support and hard efforts to earn the dollars necessary to allow us to move the stadium and start playing some football games up there as early as this fall. So that's a nice contribution, and they have our appreciation. And then Matt Austin is here, and I'd like to share a little bit of a project that Matt has been working on with some of his students, and I'll let you kind of tee it up a little bit and just share, and then we can play a little bit.
So just to see how we've used the MacBooks this year, and we appreciate the MacBooks because they've been a lot better than the Chromebooks as far as using things. The seniors, so like Martina here, what we do towards, after we get through about 3/4 of the year, we do a sports science video. Everybody's kind of see ESPN sports science or movie physics, or so the kids actually go out and find a video clip they want to do, and then they kind of explain all the physics behind it. What I have for you is just kind of a mashup of some of those things. It's not every one because that would take an hour to watch all of them. So it's just a mashup of kind of them, and I don't know, Martina, you want to add anything to that?
We're going to follow up with questions for you.
Okay, but they're just they're a lot nicer than the Chromebooks for sure.
We do a lot better job as far as putting everything together. So
Great.
this is kind of just a mashup of, I think, 3 or 4.
The concrete mesh in this scene weighs approximately 371 kilograms or 817 pounds. It would take 3,794 newtons to lift this into the air. The world record for a single bicep curl is 300 pounds. This means the scene is totally false, and there's no way that the rocket could grow. You do that in sleep.
Sports and Science by Amanda and Madison. Golf is a sport that has a lot of physics in it that you need to understand to play the sport. In this video, we show different golf strokes and the physics of them. First, we'll start off with the chip. First, we'll start off with finding the initial velocity. We find this by taking 12, which is the distance, divided by time, 0.98, divided by cosine of the angle, which is 37. Lastly, we found the change in x velocity, and we did this by taking the initial velocity, 15.33 times cosine of 37, to equal 12.24 meters per second. Now, to find the work, we took force, 0.09 newtons, times the distance, 2.44 meters, to equal 0.22 joules. We found the kinetic energy by taking 0.5 times the mass, 0.04582, times the velocity, 3.163 squared, to equal 0.23 joules.
The distance between the ball and the goal is 10.97 meters. The ball takes 0.7 seconds to reach the goal. The equation to find average velocity is delta x over delta t. So therefore we will do 10.97 divided by 0.7 to get an average velocity of 15.67 meters per second. To find final velocity, we use the equation delta x equals 1/2 times initial velocity plus final velocity times delta t. The variables we know are delta x, which is 10.97 meters, delta t, which is 0.7 seconds, initial velocity, which is 0, and the factor we're trying to find is final velocity. Plugging it into the equation, and you'll find that the final velocity is 31.34 meters per second.
To find the height that the ball hits the goal, first we have to use the equation delta x equals initial velocity times cosine times delta t. And then when you solve for that, the initial velocity is 16.9 meters per second. And then you plug that into the equation delta y equals initial velocity times sine times delta t plus 1/2 times acceleration in the y direction times delta t squared. And when you solve for that, the ball hits the goal at 2.03 meters in the air.
Thank you very much. I don't believe you got to see your videos. What was yours on?
Gymnastics.
Okay. So if anybody wants to see that, I'll make that available for the board. And it's a great project. But give us a little bit, so I'm going to ask you some questions. Obviously, we're taking real world applications and you're putting some physics behind it. What is that, kind of just walk us through your project specifically and then tell us a little bit about maybe how the technology helped you out to do that.
Yeah, I can.
So for the project I did, we did a video of a gymnast vaulting. So we had to pause and play it a couple times to find like how far she ran and how high she went, and then we used the computers to figure out like the angle she came off the vault to help us solve like some displacement and how high she went and how far, which is really helpful.
Fantastic.
I would happen to be doing an observation. Wasn't you also talking about the rotation of the
Yeah,
body?
Yep,
the
the-
rotational
how-
motion.
yeah.
Most of these videos end up being 7 to 8 minutes long. It takes approximately like, about a week and a half by the time they get this done, because they're out filming. I mean, you see these guys, the first one here, they kind of did it like that whole sports center thing, because they're pros and that's what they do. But you have the voiceover, you have the music, you have the timing of everything, trimming and clipping different cuts to put together, different clips. It really is neat to see this. Now this is their second video project they do for me with this, but the MacBooks have actually probably made this a little easier, because you can film on your iPhone and just drop it right to the computer versus trying to upload it to Google, and then you got to download it, and so it's actually a lot nicer that way. Obviously this is one of the probably few projects that we do as far as this goes, but we try to use these a lot, especially things like this. So.
And I just wrap by saying that's part of our strategic plan, is to infuse digital literacy inside of some of the projects that we normally give as a paper report or an oral report. Now we're using our technology tools, and we're learning as much about the technology and how to leverage the tool as we are the actual content of science in this case. So I'm sure you learned a lot about filming and editing and voiceovers and narration and all of those good things, which is an equally important skill as we move forward. So job well done. Thanks for taking a few minutes and sharing a little bit of your classroom with us.
Absolutely.
Great job. And then I do want to recognize we have 3 board members that are in their last meeting this evening with us. And so I'd just like to recognize Lisa Hay began your service in 2011. You had 2 terms over 6 years and served as a vice president for 4 years. You were one of the original members on the hiring committee when I came here and well vetted that position. And I just want to thank you for your time and term and service. It's been fantastic. Larry began his service in 2015. He's also served as our clerk for the last 3 years, and again been a valuable board member, so thank you for serving, Larry. Appreciate your time with us. And Julie has run 2 terms as well, 6 years on the board, served as vice president for 2 of those years, and has really been helpful in fostering that communication and transparency, some of the things that were of interest to you when you came to the board. And I know you've already shared that you want to continue to stay involved as a parent and a different chair in this room. So we look forward to having you come back and visit with us often. Please join me in thanking all 3 board members for their Each one is receiving a hand-painted plaque. We want to thank Janet Lovinger for, again, putting together the plaques. It's a keepsake and a momentum of the years of service and the time with the Mineral Point, and may display that proudly. It's a great thing to be able to serve the community.
We'll take a photo later, so don't dash out.
Photos to be taken there.
Stay till the end.
Okay, I'd like to go forward with the agenda. That's our recognitions. Thank you, Larry.
Includes our recognitions. Approval of the minutes from last meeting. Do you have a motion to approve?
Thank you.
Motion by Jeff. Do we have a second? Second by Larry Dolphin. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Board communications received. All right. Citizen communications. Did we have anybody sign?
Nope, it's blank.
Anybody? All right. Well, thank you for attending.
Items for information and discussion. Elementary School Planning Committee.
Maggie and Leah, if you are available, come and join us, please. Again, Maggie and Leah serve as our co-chairs, and we did have an elementary school planning committee meeting on April 2nd, so they're here to update the board. Those minutes are available for you in the board packet, and then that will link into a follow-up discussion with FEH with regards to a community survey. So welcome, Leah and Maggie.
Thank you. Sure. So we had, well, I guess since the last board meeting, I'll start there. We held along with FEH, held the design workshop, which was open to the community. It was very well attended by the standards that FEH sees, and we got a lot of very valuable feedback. It was very interesting to hear what the community had to say. And then last week, we had our 4th or 5th ESPC meeting. We debriefed the workshops, worked on got the materials, discussed the materials that FEH had produced since the workshops. We went over a survey that will be sent out to the community, and I'm forgetting something right now. I can't. Oh, I guess it was this. FEH also provided some more in-depth information on how people had voted during the workshop and the reactions that they had had.
There was a little bit of overlap between the 2 days in terms of attendance, but most of the attendance between the 2 days was separate individuals. Myself and a few others, for sure, they're both days in attendance. I think that it was interesting to see how folks were milling about the comments, and I just really felt like the folks who were there and invested made a lot of good comments on the ideas that were presented. The other thing that was very interesting was the kids' feedback when they were looking at the different projects. So I know, Maggie, you were there while the kids were coming through. I didn't get that good fortune, but it sounded like they had a lot of good ideas, such as a science lab, which wasn't something that necessarily would have been on my radar. I'm not sure about other folks. But so it's interesting. Clearly the kindergartners and some of the other folks wanted more slides and things. So a little different focus depending on the age group that you're looking at. But beyond that, I think there was good participation and some good feedback. The committee spent a good amount of time going through the potential survey questions. I think there's a few pieces of information we have yet to fill in terms of what the potential mill rate impacts might be and some other things. My understanding is there's some more process behind that yet, but those were kind of my key takeaways from our meeting. So
yeah. I think FEH, are you going to speak about the survey at more length? But it was good for the committee to wrap our heads around the purpose of the survey. It's not going to be a survey to ask people whether they want something or don't want something. It's more about understanding what education is needed in the community, what tolerances there are for different things, and kind of getting a baseline of information. So it was really good for the committee to wrap our brains around what the purpose of that was and the kind of questions that were going to get us to that purpose.
We'll transition into the survey, and then if you can stay in touch so we can maybe ask some follow-up questions, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Okay. I'd like to welcome again Christy and Kevin from FEH. And, thank you again for leading us through the design workshop process. And now we turn our attention into getting some additional information around the survey. So kind of walk us through your thoughts and planning stages as we go into this next part of the process.
Anybody not have a copy right in front of them?
I don't. Thank you.
We brought a couple on letterhead.
Yes, we've formatted it so it
Yeah, one
so it
more.
matches the.
So, as Maggie said, the purpose here is kind of 2 or 3-fold. It's not just to say you like this or not. It's to get information and to educate and find out how much more education we have to do. So, several of these questions ask, you know, what might you have been involved in, and are you aware that these things are happening? So the first question really asks, do you know about the school district's efforts? And a lot of folks don't keep track of everything that you do. As board members, you know it intimately, but we want them to be aware of the safety and security upgrades, serving as a community resource, the energy efficiency stuff you're doing, and things that you're doing to improve your learning environments. And so this is educating as well as understanding how much they know. Are you aware that an assessment was done and it really established 2 million, a little bit more or less than that, at the elementary school that needs to be done over the next 5 to 6 years? So we're presenting them with the information, and we're starting to help them understand that, as the second paragraph at the top says, the survey was created to get an understanding of the public's knowledge about the short and long-term plan, gather input, and that due to these code, maintenance, ADA, and capacity issues, the district's required to make an investment to the elementary school, and the board wants to make sure it's a wise investment. It's done with the big picture in mind, not just, let's do this, next year let's do that, but the big picture's in mind.
I have a question about that one.
Yes.
Is it okay to ask questions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Was that based on the report that was done in February that you presented to us in February?
Yes.
Is that the basis for the $2 million?
That report pointed out approximately 1.6 million, and we did a little more investigation into the floor settling, which we initially thought had been fully addressed.
I thought it was done moving, but the floor is still settling.
But it's not. So we worked through some possible solutions of what things might cost to fully correct that.
Yeah, because at the design workshop, you had said that you were not a structural engineer, but that you thought there was this possible settling issue. So what have you done to confirm that there is a settling issue? Has there been a structural engineer out to look at it?
There has not been a structural assessment at this point. And the reason we believe it's still settling is because a few years back, the situation was fixed and corrected, and new flooring was installed, and it's pretty obvious that there are at least 3, maybe 4 classrooms where there are new cracks that have appeared in what was fixed last time. So in the last 5 or 6 years since that work was done, maybe it was 4 years, there's been some settlement. So in a building that was built 50 years ago that's still moving, tells us we've got an issue that needs to be dealt with.
And that, the settling issue, is that, how much of the $2 million is that?
That's about $300,000. What we basically did was we said, we've got almost 1.7 in the other items. We don't know how much the settlement has occurred. We don't know what's causing it for sure. And not knowing those, we haven't developed a solution. But in our minds, it could very easily be that $300,000 number. So that's why we have generally used the amount of $2 million.
The report from February had a column called required items, and then there were recommendations. The required items, I added them up, were around 500,000.
Okay.
So it's the recommended items that then would take you to the,
1.7, yeah.
okay, so help me, because this says required, this question. It's taking the recommended items and now the.
It is
being
taking
called
the
required.
recommended, and the reason many of them are called recommended because at the time the building was built, code didn't specifically require that. If we renovate the building in a substantial way, the code says that if you renovate more than 50% of a fire area, the entire building has to be brought to the new code. So if we do some renovation work there, we would have to do all those things, depending on what that renovation work might be. Sometimes we've worked with the state office to allow us to do certain things without triggering that requirement. But if you just go by the code, we would be then required to do those things. There's some, I think we categorize a few things as urgent
I
probably
think
as
there were
well.
like 2 things urgent and then.
Not a lot,
No.
yeah, not a lot.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, we can talk about every one of these questions as much as you like. Our hope is to edit it and refine it and then issue this tomorrow, so that we can get as much time as possible for people to start responding to the survey. And it's an education tool as well. So number 3 then is, are you aware of the space needs analysis that was done? So we've had the condition assessment done, we've also had the space needs analysis where we really compared against state and national standards, and we identified deficiencies in the wellness, teaming education spaces, and some of the classrooms are undersized based on recurring enrollment. So we're not throwing out big flags there, but it's letting people know that we've made this comparison. Are you aware that the elementary school is lacking a physical education and wellness space that meets national standards? No, we made a separate, it was agreed that we would make a separate point there, even though we made it up above, because it drives a large square footage of what would be needed in the building. It's a big space. So we thought that was important to point out, and anybody who has used that space from the community as a gym would realize that it's about, the court inside there is about maybe 60% the size of a standard court. And anybody who's got a child that is indoor during bad weather would recognize that there's some challenges there too.
When you say national standards, it's national standards for what? For an elementary gym or for a basketball?
For an elementary gym.
For an elementary gym?
Yeah, so the standards that we use are specifically for an elementary of the enrollment size that you have, when we did that comparison. So we know that it's really small. It's even a little bit small, maybe even for the lunchroom purpose. So, and because the full-size space is so large, we wanted to make it its own question. And then number 5, we want to find out if the respondents have already participated in any of the design workshops, because we wanted to see if we had 125 participants in the workshop, are these the same people or are they additional people? Then we want to find out if they are actually employees of the school district, if they have children or grandchildren in the school district, because those, we want to be able to divide the data and find out if the responses are different from different groups of people. And then we wanted to point out some things that people may have forgotten. The school district's 20-year bond for the high school, middle school building, this building that we're in, the ag building, were recently paid off. Recent is relative. Do you support extending the current tax level to address the elementary school needs?
I sort of had a problem with that question, in that we used the loan being paid off for this to justify the last referendum. I don't think you can use that again to, I mean, it hasn't been that recent. It's been, what,
2013.
okay, 5 years? So in the way the question's phrased, it makes it sound like, you know, if we had another referendum, it's not gonna, it would just maintain the current tax level, but it really wouldn't. And when was the ag building paid off? That was
It
more
was
recent.
the year following either a year or two following the high school bond. So they were relatively close, but I think it was 2015 on the ag building, if I recall correctly.
I find this question a little misleading.
Okay. How would you reword it?
I would take it out.
You would take it out? Okay. You can do that. It was our understanding that other expenses have been kind of backfilled, whether it's the ag building or other things that have backfilled, so that the tax level hasn't fully
It's never gone down.
gone down.
Because we've used it.
Right.
But you borrow against that, it's not going back down, it's only going up from that point.
Right, it won't go
So I
back
agree
down.
with Lisa, that question should go.
Okay. Question 9 then was really important for people to be aware of how the funding works for your debt as well as your budget. Every district has a different percentage that the state reimburses for your annual budget from the previous year. Your average right now is about 52%. Some districts it's 12%. For example, we're working in Waterloo, theirs is 12%. Some districts is as high as 80%. And we feel this is important to educate people about the fact that this is one way that people get state taxes that they pay back to your community, back to your school district, that people aren't aware of. So it reads, are you aware that the state of Wisconsin reimburses the Mineral Point Unified School District annually for an average of 52% of operating budget from the previous year, including debt payments on construction projects? Example, for every $1 of an annual bond payment, the state reimburses 52 cents.
All the questions that begin with "Are you aware?" and that's, you're more informing them rather than trying to get information from them.
And some of these we are informing. In some districts we work with, people are very much on top of these kinds of things. So what we're trying to do is educate them a little bit, but also start to understand what things we need to educate the voters about. If people are fully aware of everything that happened with the condition assessment, if our responses come back and 75% of the respondents are aware of that, we won't see that as a big priority, as a message to communicate. If something comes back and only 5% of the folks, respondents, are aware of that, we really want to focus on that as part of the message, to educate people. And that's why we question, or phrase some of the questions this way. Question 10 then gets right into the little concept diagrams that were developed and really responded to by the participants. Do you agree with the Elementary School Planning Committee Public Design Workshop participants' recommendations? And you put, please indicate your level of agreement with each option. So people can either put strongly agree, or somewhat agree, or neither disagree or neither agree or disagree, somewhat disagree, and strongly disagree. And we've kind of talked about how those might change, but some folks might not really have an opinion, and they can put I neither agree or disagree. So A is to renovate and expand the existing elementary school to meet the building code, maintenance, ADA, parking, safety, and capacity needs. And the examples of that are options C2 or E1. And those are in the range of $12.5 million to do that work. And that's basically all the cost.
Can we get a breakdown of the 12.5?
You got? Yeah, we have breakdowns of
In the
those.
survey or for your reference?
For our reference, I would be uncomfortable voting to approve a survey without understanding what that 12.5 is.
Sure. Yeah, I think we provided that. I may or may not have copies of that with me. I do. This was the last markup of the survey, by the way. So the committee has gone through it quite a bit. So this happens to be a breakdown of costs associated with option C.2.
Can I just ask like general questions?
Absolutely.
Like the gym, I think we know, is 1.75, right?
Just the gymnasium piece?
Yeah, that was the figure we were given.
And that's in the
Oh,
February
okay.
report.
That's,
Oh, yeah, that it
yeah,
was.
Is 1
yeah,
point-
that
is that
sounds
right?
about right.
Okay. And then you've got the 2 million for the ADA and the, you know, fixing the existing building. to
Yes.
be-
Yep.
And then how much for the addition for the classrooms?
The classroom additions, the office addition, some additional PE storage would be about 2.1.
And then how much for the reconfiguration of the traffic flow?
All the site work, there's a breakdown of site work here. So you've got the, for example, site lighting is about 13,200 to provide adequate lighting with the lane and the parking lot. Parent pickup lane that we showed is about 24,000. Stormwater detention to deal with is about 30,000. The actual drive lane for the bus lane is about 200,000. The resurfacing of the parking spaces that you have now, that's about 40,000. I don't know how much detail you really want. We can get you
Well,
copies.
Do you want the lump site number?
I'm wondering how, when you get the gym, you've got get the building back up to code,
Mhm.
you've got the addition, and that gets you to 6 million. So then, how do you go from that?
The
It seems
the total site cost is about $650,000. Total site work. The, all the additions combined are about 3.9. The major renovations to first floor, which that includes the cellaring and renovating the locker rooms, the office space, the LMC, and some major work on the first floor. That's about $2.3 million. The major work on the second floor is only about $624,000. The major code maintenance in ADA, as I said, is 1.7, because the settlement is in this other bigger number, because of the significant amount of work that you have to do there. And then we've got some minor finishes on the balance, the 11,000 square foot balance of the building of about 300,000. And then on each of those numbers, we use a 10% design and bid contingency amount, because obviously these are very conceptual. And then we have a 5% construction contingency added to that. And then we try to identify all the potential soft cost items that you might expect to see that you don't see on bid day. Those things would include any kind of a fundraising assistance, if you had a groundbreaking ceremony, geotechnical subsurface investigation, the settling investigation, technology and computer equipment allowance. Every time you build a new classroom, there's an allowance in for that. There's an allowance for fixtures and furniture and equipment. We put allowance in for hazardous material survey, sample, test, and abatement, because we know we're going to find some. We always do when we renovate and run a school. Quality control, material testing and inspections. That is something that is typically the owner's responsibility, not a general contractor's. You wouldn't ask a contractor to test his own stuff. You would hire, the district would hire somebody to test their work. Builder's risk insurance. pretty traditional. Construction permits and fees, a state review, printing costs for bidding documents, a site survey, geothermal test well, design fees to put a furniture and equipment bidding document together, any kind of reimbursable expenses you might see. If you were to hire a construction manager, and then architect and engineering design and potential performance contracting fees. And then any legal fees that you might see from attorneys reviewing contracts.
Could we get a copy of that?
Absolutely, yeah. These are the budgets that we used during the design workshop to establish the budgets for each one of these concepts. Yeah, we can email those. We typically don't make these documents public because of the conceptual nature of the design at this point. But these are based on what we see for similar projects of similar size. And they are budgets, obviously they're not cost estimates.
Can you go back? I thought 2 meetings ago, I thought we were talking $5 million without the site. Because that was the one time you were here. And I remember $5 million sitting there, and that was the, and maybe that did not have the gym, but I'm like, so let's hypothetically say it wasn't 5 million plus 1.7 for the gym, that's 6.7, and then we didn't have the site work. So we've gone from 6.7 to now we're at 12 point something, and I'm just like, how'd this balloon?
Well, we didn't have any designs. I mean, 2 meetings ago, there was no design solution. These were just generated a couple of weeks ago.
Recall too that might be referencing, if we did everything on the accessibility list and everything on the capacity list, that those two numbers.
That could be, yeah.
5.7 or almost 6, just to do what we identified, without any prioritization. It was just kind of an all-in number.
Yep.
I also was surprised at the number, and it seemed to be about double what I was expecting. So I don't know how we address that as a board.
I don't have a recommendation other than the number is the number, you know, that is a budget number. It's not the actual bid document that you would actually, it's not the final number, but it is the best guess if you did that design concept that it would cost that amount of dollars to do something based on work similar that they've completed. So I think the number is the number for that particular concept. I don't know how to address it in any other way than that.
But wouldn't the survey information help you as a board, help the board determine what the community is an appetite for and what they understand about the process? And
Yeah, but I feel like the survey should include an option that, this survey has the renovation and addition to the elementary school being somewhat close to the cost of building an entirely new elementary school up here. And I think that you could have an option where the elementary school would be a lot less than $12 million. And that, will affect the survey, I think.
What I think, Kevin, is under 10, question number 10 here. Have that referring to the elementary school, and like Lisa said, have different options. And then another question by itself, moving the elementary to the high school, which seems a lot clearer, I guess, as far as the number. And going back to number 10, have A being with the new gym, B being with additional space, and identify the space, whether it's classroom or administrative, and then C being traffic, site work, traffic control, traffic access, that kind of thing. I think Lisa is right. It does look like we are artificially inflating the elementary proposal to gain more support for the high school project. I don't know what your survey will come back at. If people could if you could somehow put in a question,
It sounds like you'd like to divide it into pieces. Do you support doing code maintenance and ADA work at the elementary
if we
school?
keep it simple and I do.
Okay.
I think the public will be somewhat confused by a big number without knowing all that's included in it. You know, this includes a gym, it includes new traffic flow, it includes an addition,
And these design sketches are very small.
very small. Here's what I think. I feel like to send the survey out tomorrow, I think would be difficult and would be rushed. And maybe it's being done because the committee has its charge to end by the May board meeting. Could we extend everything by a month? I mean, would that be okay, and give you all more time to maybe meet with the Buildings and Grounds Committee or some portion of the board to more flesh out the numbers, the $12 million number, and maybe rework the survey a little bit?
It's fine with us, it's,
We'll take the board's recommendation on that. You know, I think the committee has worked the survey over pretty hard. For those members that were there that night, they went through quite an extensive review. I saw your red pens, which reminded me. I'm not sure how much more tighter that survey will get from our committee's perspective, so it really is the board's opportunity to refine and polish this survey so that you're comfortable with it. And to the point of maybe extending, I think another month could certainly extend. It gets to be challenging, obviously, in summer to keep the committee's work together, and it does then push the board on the back end to decide if there is a resolution, what the resolution would be, and then to start a campaign toward a November referendum. So I think we have another month to play with, but I wouldn't suggest going much beyond that. I think at some point the board has to give some direction as to if this is going to be something for November or in the future in April or the following year.
and one of the things that we do many times in a survey like this is put a link to the district's website where you can go directly to see the condition assessment, the space needs assessment, the conceptual designs, and the associated budgets. And we kind of decided as we went through this that we wanted to put the images right on the survey. It may be that they're too small in this case, but our goal was to keep it to 2 pages.
Digitally, it would be larger.
Gotcha. If you wanted to keep it to 2 pages, because I was gonna say, what would be wrong with going to a 3rd page and doing those? So
We can certainly do that.
That much bigger, because that is really hard to read, especially without color.
Yeah, it's easier with color.
The color helps.
Yeah, if I might add a little context to this survey, to this question number 10. The questions that FEH started out with in the draft survey were more to what you're speaking to right now. It include keeping the existing elementary school and fully updating it for code and developing a new separate parent pickup drop-off lane, along with an addition to the existing elementary and a new elementary school building up here on the site. The reason the committee took these out, and you guys can help me recall this, was because, well, we didn't really see it as the work of the committee to recommend bringing the elementary school up to code, because as far as we understand, once the district knows about code violations, it is the district's responsibility to take care of those issues. So it didn't really make sense to ask the community, do you think that we should meet legal code? I mean, that didn't really make sense, so we got rid of that option. And then the last one, talking about just site work at the new elementary school, also didn't reflect it didn't really reflect what we were looking at. There really wasn't an option where we just do code in the elementary school and only do site work, because that doesn't really meet the needs that the board gave as kind of the charter for the committee. So we really whittled it down per the feedback we got at the workshop and our understanding of what the board had previously asked us to do, just to have that context.
from my perspective, I mean, one of the elements of the committee was to make sure that we're making a fiscally responsible investment. And not to bring up the Nexus thing, but I did go back into the Nexus proposals, and some of the numbers for some of these same things were substantially lower. And so, to me, there's an issue that, you know, we as a board need to go into that, the assumptions in the numbers, I think. I mean, I don't disagree with what you said. I mean, if something's against code, we have to fix it. We don't have to survey the community to find out if we have to do that.
Can I? I'll just throw in too that I think we need to remember the survey is just giving the committee information, and then we're going to meet and make a recommendation. And at that time, the board will be able to discuss and refine and say, hey, we're just going to do the basics. You know, this is not committing the board to do these projects. It's purely for our committee to look at the May meeting. And then we're coming up with a recommendation for you. To me, that puts a different slant on the survey.
This is kind of loaded in a way. If you can, for $6 million more, build a brand new school, why spend that kind of money older?
I think once the numbers, the budget numbers were put to the design options during the workshop, I think that exact point was very powerful for a lot of people. I don't think that those numbers were expected to be as close as they were. I think it has to do with the age of the building and the challenges of the site and all of those things. And I think perhaps that's important information for the community to have, that it's not, it's maybe not what one might think, renovating versus a new build. And that's important information to put out there too.
One of the other things for me that was sort of an afterthought from our committee meeting was the timeline doesn't really get laid out in the survey, and that a renovation would take approximately 2 years and the new build would be 12 months. So I don't know if that's something that would be important for the board to gather information on, but that was something I thought about as I was continuing to ponder information after our last meeting.
Kevin, is it possible to redefine question 10 tonight and try to get this going tomorrow? I mean, there's a...
Sure.
You heard opinions from 4 of us, and it doesn't sound like we support question number 10 as it is presented to us tonight.
So one possibility might be to divide those concepts up into the code maintenance and ADA, like we talked about. You heard the reasons why not to do that. Into a renovation, into an addition with a gym, and an addition with classroom and office and secure entrance space, and then site work. We could make it a series of questions, or we could just do something similar to what we did on question 1, where we have several line items with kind of a budget number behind it and a box to check. You do something like that, so people can see how those budgets build without putting 12.5 million as the big kind of total number, but people can do the easy math if they want to. So that'd be one way to do it. If you want to keep it as one question, we can absolutely quadruple the size of these images if people are comfortable going with 3 pages. We can certainly add the link onto the top of the survey and keep the images in, so if people wanted to go back to the district's website and see everything combined, they could do that and learn more about it.
Checked boxes or whatever, you could have the compliance issues where it's already checked. So it's not an option, that's just happening.
Yeah, we could do that.
Part of the committee too, we wondered going beyond 2 pages, people might get tired of filling out the survey. I wonder if you blew up the blueprints, would you want to put them as more of like an appendix after the survey, so they can take the survey and come back and go back and forth?
You know, if larger images forces it to go to 3 pages,
Right.
it's probably not a big impact on what you're gonna finish it. And if you think about it,
Same number of questions.
yeah, it's the same number of questions, the images be bigger. It would probably be okay if we did that, because it takes only so much time to register that image.
Well, I have a question with B and C in there. It's, you're asking attached versus not attached, basically.
Yes.
I mean, if you got rid of the attached versus not attached, that would save some space. I mean, it just seems like a non-critical.
Well, we did hear, there were a lot of comments made in the comments about the advantages of it, people wanting it to be attached. And there are lots of folks
Who don't want
who
it.
didn't like that. And to be honest, whenever we do a project where kids of different age groups are connected together into one building, there is a very emotional response to that. And some people will absolutely vote no because they don't want second graders connected to a building where there are 10th graders or 4th graders and 8th graders. And that's why we think it's important to keep it as a separate question.
Okay. I have a question about question 11.
Yes?
Sure. The $24 a month, what is that referring to, which option?
That was a calculation that was done actually by one of the committee members who ran the math on this, and that was based on an $18 million number.
On an average home.
On the average home.
price.
I just think it should be clear what that is. Otherwise, you just don't know, is that for the 12 million or the 18 million?
I think to free up a question, we could combine 11 and 12, and in 12 there do some type of a checkbox system where $4 represents 2 million and on down the line.
Yeah, put in parentheses what that represents as far as
represents 8 million or whatever the case
You can do that. We think if you're going to get into that kind of detail, I actually cannot do that math. I think you need a bond consultant to do that. And the reason we phrased the questions like this wasn't so people could pick the size of the project. It was so people could tell us what they're comfortable with for their tax impact.
Well, minimum question 12.
Well, question 11, we can say that this is what we estimate an $18 million project would cost. And people can kind of generally in their head think about, well, what this impact might be. But because our understanding is there is going to be a drop in the mill rate from where you're currently at. We don't know how much that drop will be or what kind of change there might be there. It's not that we don't do that kind of math.
Well, what's going to drop?
Do we have something that I don't know about that's suggesting that our mill rate is dropping?
Yeah, our forecasts show that it should be dropping into the mid-11s over the next 4 or 5 years.
Or why?
There's a myriad of things that are happening across the state with both state aid and as well as property values and some of our lease projects. We continue to pay down some of our long-term debt than that 1 million. There's a lot of factors in that, and we can kind of walk that exercise through at another time. But it does show to be slightly.
And I guess I was concerned with when it was $24 a month for 20 years. I want to know how accurate that is.
I do too, and he said estimate. I want more than just an estimate because a lot of
And we
homes.
can't do that math, I'm sure you.
Somebody did it here though.
One of the committee members.
But I think we have to
detailed
remember
that math together.
the charge of the survey is they want to know if there's support for $24 a month for 20 years. Not that that's what it's going to cost, that's the impact, is to help their decision. They want to know if there's support there for that, because that can help them, lead them in the direction of where there's support for, not charging us with, you know, this is our survey and we're trying to find out if a referendum's gonna pass. They just wanna know where the support is at. So I'm a little hesitant to change it too much, because then we're taking ownership of the survey they're using to make their recommendation to us.
Well, it comes out $30 a month.
That's not the question. The question is, do you support $24 a month? It's not we're building a new school that will be $24 a month. It's just, would you support $24 a month?
Do you think people will read it that way?
I think that's exactly what it says.
I know, but a lot of people don't read what things say. They see that number and they're gonna say, that's what it said, and then it change in the future. And then they're gonna say, well, it said $24 back when the survey went around.
Kevin, would it be, if we got rid of question 11, what would the impact be on the results that we're getting? If we put 24 in the list below, would that, is there a reason to have 11 above the information we're getting out of people from 12?
Probably not.
And I'll just add also that the committee, we spent a lot of time on these two questions. Because for us, and we realized at the end that, you know, we are a group of people that decided to get together and think really hard about all of this stuff, and that a lot of people that this survey are going to might just have a gut reaction, like, $8 sounds fine, and 12 does not. And that's sort of what we're getting at with this question, is what is your, you know, kind of gut reaction? Obviously, there's not enough information here to make an analytical decision, so it's to Andy, is that?
Yes.
Andy, yeah, sorry, I was like, oh no, I did that wrong. Is to kind of get at where people are laying on that spectrum with their tolerances.
And if it's a spectrum, then would you want to add 28?
Right.
To get it true?
If we got rid of 11.
Or as Larry mentioned, 30, you know, you want to go beyond.
Yeah, we changed these numbers many times during our.
Yeah, we did.
It was 5, 10, 15, 20.
130 once, and a lot of homes, a lot of them are double that, and that's gonna make it 48 a month.
Yeah.
I actually think your question 11, if you added in what that represents, like how big of a referendum, and you said somebody ran the numbers, so it correlates with 18 million. I think it's helpful to put those numbers in perspective, so people understand why you're asking 8, 12, 24.
Right, so
And
if
then, but I
no,
think you should add 24 to question number 12.
Can you eliminate 11?
I think keep 11, but add in, if you're comfortable, that correlates with the $18 million referendum.
Is this the only cover letter? This is what they'll
Yes.
receive? I mean, I think Angie's point is valid, that, I mean, this is on school letterhead. This might, for people who are not really aware of the committee, this could really shock some people and worry them that this is, you know, the referendum kind of, I mean, you never know. So I don't know for what that's worth. I don't know what that means if we give more information at the top about this being, you know, sort of a fact finding from the committee to present something to the board, but actually using some of that language at the very beginning of this to sort of alleviate some of that panic right off the bat.
Should we take it off school district letterhead?
I think so. I do.
Okay.
I mean, it makes it look official, like these are plans that have been drawn up and are ready to roll and you're deciding, so. Probably
Maybe underneath the Mineral Point Unified School District survey, we could put by the elementary school planning committee, or, you know, some sort of context for it.
Yeah, we can
Header.
describe that.
Well,
Maybe
you have,
explain
like-
that you're using this survey like what Deb said.
Right.
Yep.
Help make your recommendation to the board.
And do you have language just saying all numbers are estimates? I don't know, budgets and estimates and based on experience, but not on, I don't know. There's gotta be
They're not
some
final
legal.
numbers.
These numbers are not set in
Yeah.
stone or
Yeah.
confirmed or.
Definitely.
A nice asterisk with a disclaimer at the bottom.
Yeah. Do you think that would, I was
Just
actually
say,
wondering.
don't freak out yet.
Take a deep breath.
4 deep breaths in. Okay.
So question 12, we'll add the $24 to it. And question 13, we always ask people if they would want to volunteer in a campaign. Do you still want to ask that question? It tells them that there might be a campaign.
This whole thing tells them that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it sounds like there's some sensitivity, just want to make sure. We found this type of a survey to be the best way to find 20 or 30 volunteers to assist with any kind of a communication campaign.
Hey, leave it.
Okay?
So we're gonna, did we decide if we're gonna do 3 pages?
I think we're gonna make the images larger,
Yeah.
and that'll push it to 3 pages. But we're also gonna put the link in, and we're gonna provide the information to the school district, so someone can assemble it in one place, so that one link can take them to everything, so they can see it all. So we really talked about the challenge of having multiple links to see different things.
And then we're gonna rework question 10?
Yes.
For sure, okay.
Yep.
And remove question 8.
I wrote,
Yes.
remove question 8 and then gave it a big old box, so 8 is coming off.
Would you like me to confirm question 11, or did 11 come off, or is that something else?
That's 11 is on with context of what $24 a month might
So would you like me to
provide.
We need to
contact Power
confirm that if
Council
we're
and-
gonna put 18 million on there.
I think we'd
Because then if
want.
it moves, then people
We'd be a lot
say-
more comfortable if you did that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of my husband,
I will
he would
contact-
see that
Right.
number and then he would say, well, that said this before.
Lisa
that
Blason?
changed."
Yeah.
Could you just,
Actually, Michelle Weinberg.
Okay.
could you take number 12 and say, if there's a referendum and a tax increase is necessary for facility capital improvements, what tax increase amount would you support?
Instead of-
And take out 11.
I like myself, but that's just me.
And take it to 24 or 26 or something to get the.
You like her
overall-
suggestion?
I do, but
Okay,
that's
I
just
know
me.
it just got videotaped.
Can you
Write it down, I'm sorry, I was listening to the
I-
player.
Maybe we don't need the voter referendum part in there, but if a tax increase is necessary to pay for facility capital improvements, what tax increase amount would you support? And include the 24 and the 30 year.
That is final language, wow.
I think you should reference it to some sort of value though.
Yeah, that's,
Some-
what I like about number 11 is it identifies a monthly value based on the average assessed home value for your district. And we would want to move that, what's in parentheses, down to the next question if we do that, I think.
Right.
Everybody okay with basically combining 11 and 12 into one
Are
question?
you gonna include the 18 million tiny?
And we probably wouldn't, unless,
No, because
Verify.
4 wouldn't, I mean, if.
It really don't. yeah.
Luke, did I hear you say you have somebody?
But
you
it
can call
still
to
sounds
get
like
more
you
accurate?
should have Luke do a confirmation,
We
but
need to
that,
do that.
I mean, without the tie to the 18 million, you don't know what you're agreeing to.
You're not agreeing to anything,
No,
one.
you're
And
only
two,
saying
you're
we
just
support
saying what
$24 a
I
month,
could
that's what you're-
support $12 a month for
Well,
a
if you
renovation
say that
project
that's
based
not
on my
dealing with
household.
a $300 house, $300,000 house.
No, but they can base that.
Yeah.
They can multiply.
they can double
Yeah,
it.
they can do it,
Yeah.
but
You want to keep 11 in as is and add the 18 million to it? And Luke will confirm that those numbers are pretty darn close. Yeah, we can do whatever you like.
I think it should be in there.
I think the 18 million should be in there, just so people have an understanding of why they're being asked about that particular amount per month.
We referenced 18 million in the questions above. If we put the assessed value, roll that into number 12, along with the 18 million, I think it's simpler, and the community will look at it and say, well, if we're gonna spend 18 million, it's gonna cost me 24, after we check it, of course, $24 a month on a $150,000 house.
I don't know that they would know. I mean, I didn't. I read it, I read the previous question. There was the 12 million, and then there was the 18 million, and then it asked the question about the $24 a month. I didn't know what it was tied to.
If we do a little fact checking with the tax levy impact, we talked about this earlier, tying every one of these to a number, the $4 a month and the $8 a month. I still support that idea.
While we're talking about this, I want to talk about one little exercise that we sometimes do during public meetings when we're at the stage, if we have a large group of people in a room. A lot of people make their decision based on a gut reaction to a number. If we ask people to everybody raise their hand, and we're going to start at so many $1 million, and to drop your hand when we get to a number that's you think is too high. We start at 2 million, everybody raise your hand, is 2 million okay? And when I get to a number that's too high, you drop it. People will just drop their hand, not knowing what your scope is. It's just 12 million's too much. I'd do 11, but I wouldn't do 12, with no relationship to anything. And the exact same thing is true for question 12. How much would you support per month? And if you start at 0 and everybody drop your hand when the number is there, they'll drop their hand when they get to a gut reaction of a number. And they will vote on election day based on that $1 million number and based on what they think their monthly cost is going to be. They don't need to relate to each other. And that's part of the information we're trying to get here, is to see what are people's emotional appetite to dollars per month that they would support, regardless of how many million it's going to generate. Because people vote their emotions.
Don't you want to know, though, committee, what people's gut is when they hear the million, 18 million versus 12 million? Because that does factor into a referendum too.
We're going to get that in question 10.
Yeah, 10A and C.
We feel we're going to get that with the somewhat disagree, strongly disagree in question 10.
I think that the committee really deferred to FEH on this idea of what that number is that kind of makes people drop off finding that number that is being explored, and I think question number 12 in this draft. I think that although the information that we're looking to get in question number 11, I think would be interesting to the committee. I think that if the board believes that the risk of putting those kind of specific numbers into the community doesn't outweigh the benefit of the question, I think that we would just want to get rid of that question and keep number 12 as a broad gut reaction. This is just how are we feeling here today? If number 11 and number 12 both existing next to each other, make it feel more that we are prescribing something or suggesting something more concrete than exists currently. If that is the concern, then it seems like keeping a number 12 would be more valuable information for the committee and dropping number 11.
Because ultimately the committee is just looking to gather information to make a recommendation. The board is the one who ultimately gets to decide what might potentially be presented to the public. So I think that's the other part to keep in mind.
I think the other reason 11, it almost asks two questions. It asks if you're going to support a referendum and a financial piece. So it's a little bit loaded that way, because, so I think that I agree with maybe getting rid of that completely.
And if we're having this discussion on this question,
And we have
and not
this discussion on this
understanding it,
question.
how is the community gonna understand that question and get an honest answer, feedback for you guys?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, are we gonna put 18 million in question number 11 then?
Well, I just heard most of you are gonna eliminate
I'd like to get rid of it.
You wanna get rid of it?
It sounds like the committee wants to get rid of question 11.
And reword 12.
If the board is concerned that putting that kind of number out there is just gonna make people feel like, well, that's what it is, and that's what it is. For
Change this
as
to
Andy
have
said.
this one, for this much, we can do
Yep,
this. Let's
we're gonna
jump
change
in and
that.
check also.
Yep, we're gonna change that.
I think that's the most important part of the survey. What do you do with number 10?
Okay.
So we're removing 11.
And I don't have no problem going to 3 pages. I think that would be very helpful also.
And 12, your current 12, are you gonna add any then to
Extend
comment?
them.
Yeah, if a tax increase is necessary, I'll add that verbiage in there.
And you'll add 24 as an option?
Yep, add 24.
And we'll probably add a
more
28
words.
also.
More words.
Is
Okay,
there
I'll just
disadvantage on
Because nobody likes the top one.
disadvantage on using the back of the page?
Yeah, we'll
We
probably go
just-
to 3 full pages.
Yeah, we just printed it on single sided.
So instead of this, it'll be like that with the back page on it. The downside is, I don't know, we do have to mail these back, right?
So going to 3 pages is actually perfect, because if you wanted to put mailing information on the 4th page, you could do that.
Okay, I'm just thinking about there's
As a
not gonna be a
mailing.
cost, an additional cost for them to mail it back. Should we do like 11 by 17 that we can fold as a survey? And we can figure that part out later, I just wanna make it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay? So we make these revisions tomorrow. Do we need any kind of sign off? Is that coming from Luke?
The board can certainly take action. We were getting their feedback, it's really, this is for the committee.
Yeah, it is.
And the committee has asked for this as part of their work, but we wanted the board to feed into the process. So if the board would like to take action, they can, but with your feedback, we're gonna move forward with putting the survey out.
Okay.
Okay, are we checking with someone? Are we getting Luke's approval before it goes
Yeah,
out?
we're getting this committee approval.
Okay, but Luke is my conduit to the committee.
Yep.
We can do it.
Yeah, signature on something.
Good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, thanks. We're not going far.
The second item under discussion, the FAST program. Matt?
Yes, we have a Carla Rand, our program coordinator, Julie Pompo, Paula Schutte, Matt Renwick. Did I miss anybody? Please come up. I know we've got a couple chairs. Go ahead and pull a couple other red chairs up with us. I'd like to have the whole committee come up and just share a little bit about the program and give a report out. Just to kind of tee this up a little bit for our board, the FAST program again stands for Families and Schools Together. It was a program that the board approved last year to implement this fall at the elementary level. And we've run our first session. We've received surveys. That information is in your board packet. If you're looking at the surveys, it starts on page 20. We won't be getting too deep into the surveys today, but we did want to give you the entire information available to you. But we're going to walk through a little bit about what the FAST program is and answer some questions for you. So I will turn it over to our FAST group. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. And first, just want to say thanks to Julie, Paul, and Carla. They ran the program, and the results are very positive, and we're very fortunate to have this program here at the district, and just want to thank the board for supporting it in the beginning. So this is just an update. These are the goals. I'm going to let, I guess, the experts here chime in when they want to make a point. But it's a 30-year evidence-based program out of UW-Madison, so it's local, and it's been tested and used in a variety of communities. The big three goals of the program are to strengthen family bonds, strengthen connections with the community by building trust and relationships, and empowering kids to succeed in school and in life. Demographics, and this is just a picture from the program, just, I don't know, Julie, you were there?
You'll go through, I think Matt on the slides has it's very prescribed program, very structured. So we had to learn the structures and the time frames and things of that nature. So this was just a participatory, one of the aspects. Demographics, but the interesting thing about that was we had a real cross-section of families that attended, so which was very nice. And what they did is they were able to meet one another, and generally they probably would not have mixed. So that was nice too. So they left the program with stronger bonds.
So the outcomes, what do you expect when you implement this program for the families that participate fully? So build multiple levels of social support for students and families, and increase positive factors, what they call pro-social factors, to sustain healthy behaviors. So we're just trying to create an environment for each other, for ourselves, that just helps us be more successful in life and in school. I'm gonna let Carla just talk about these real briefly.
Yeah, like Julie said, it's a very regimented program. So we first start with a shared meal, and we provide the first meal, and later on there is a raffle, and each family at one point in the program will receive a basket of something for each member of the family. It's based on a survey that we do in the beginning. And then they are providing the next meal, okay, with financial support that they bring in the next meal. So that's the first step, is the meal. But then the feeling charade and the scribbles are two activities that they do together as a family. The feeling charade is, they act out the feelings, the family has to guess. We encourage them more conversation. When's the last time you felt that way? What makes you feel that way? What would help you feel better? Just to improve the emotional communication. The scribbles is an activity where they each are given each week just a starter paper with something on it, and they create a drawing around that starter. And then they present it to each member of the family, and there's no criticism, no judgments. It's just a creative expression that they share with each other. So yeah, the family meal is actually one. But then we divide up, and the parents go to parent group, which Paula was a part of, and she can speak to that. And the kids stay behind. And we do a variety of different activities with them. Then the kids get the FAST child, and that is the identified child in the family. And it might be, it's encouraged to be the youngest, but it also may be the child who has the most difficulties connecting at school, or the parent feels like their relationship with that child needs to be strengthened. So there is one identified child in the family, and that's where the special play comes in, where they initiate the play, they start the play, they get a box of a variety of things that they can play with and create and do whatever they want. They pick the box, and then the parent stands back until the child actually invites them in some way. The parents participate, but they don't direct the activity in any way until the child invites them in, and that's a 15-minute thing. And then we come back for our raffle and our closing ceremony. Everything, like I said, is quite prescribed. It's routine. The kids come to, they're telling us what's happening next and where to get the materials and what we should be doing.
Well, you want to talk about the parent group?
Yeah, one of the main goals of FAST is to reinforce to parents and kids that your family is all your team. You guys are on a team together, and your parents or the adults are the voice of your family. That the parents are there to not only take care of you, but parent you and lead you and teach you and represent you, and you guys are all on a team. So these are some of the things that we go over in parent group, and that's a portion of the night where the kids go play and it's only adults in the room. And I think it's everyone's kind of favorite part of the night because it's downtime and it's a chance just for the adults to get together and talk. And a lot of the people we found in the group that participated last time are not Mineral Point natives. They didn't have a lot of close connections to other families. So it was a really good way for them to meet other parents. And the conversation is supposed to be parent-led. They can talk about whatever it is they want. And that's why they have me or someone that's not a school representative lead this, because if the parents want to talk or vent or discuss concerns they have about school, there's no school representatives in the room for that portion of the night. So it's just strictly the parents. And we do lead some part of the conversation, like we'll talk to them about having individual one-on-one play with your kids, how important it is to have a one-on-one relationship with them, or that they each just get one-on-one attention, I guess I should say, on a regular basis, because you want to build those connections with your kids. So that's kind of the goal of it, and then just to keep reinforcing that we aren't leading the whole night as FAST team members. If there's ever anything that's going on, like a change, now it's time to do scribbles, or now it's time to do feeling charades, we talk to the parents one-on-one kind of on the side and say, okay, now you need to tell your kids that it's time for this, and you're going to be directing them on what to do. Or it's time for you dinner, so tell your kids that it's time for them to go get the food for you and serve you dinner. So that's kind of the parent portion.
Empowering the parent as the head of the family.
There's two other leaders, there's Clark
Bennett.
Clark Bennett, and then Michelle.
Melissa Dasher.
Dasher, okay. And,
she's from Social Services, and Clark is from Meriter.
yeah, so there was 2 other people involved. So that's just the closing circle, correct?
Yep.
So the evaluation report, that's what you have here. So that's it's a pretty large part of the cost actually when we partner with FAST, is running this data to show was there an impact on what they did with the families, an actual, something you can see evidence of. So 75% of the parents reporting saw an improved family relationships. 89% found an improved relationship with the FAST child. And these are just quotes directly from, the pictures don't associate with the quotes, but I feel that I understand my child better, and I realize how important it is to spend time with him independently. Another couple of data points, 78% families reported being more cohesive as a family, and 81% found improved community relationships. So it's another quote, I feel FAST has helped me to gain relationships that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And just the last 3 data points, a 22% decrease in family conflict, 50% decrease in peer problems for the FAST child.
Yeah.
And then 57% increase more involved, the parent feels they're more involved in the child's education. One thing we did find was that the teachers didn't necessarily see that as much. I don't know what your thoughts were on that, Carla.
Yeah, there was improvement, but there wasn't anything statistically significant. And that's what FAST says they have found over the years. And the hope is that this continued strengthening of the family may result in seeing it more in the classroom in the future.
None of the activity, it's not rocket science. A lot of it, people would say it's common sense type things that we should know, but we're all guilty of getting so busy with our lives, and it's so hectic at home that I think this is just a really good reminder for parents that they can see the results of what happens and how you can improve your relationship with your child when you do slow down and take that 15 minutes to just spend with them one-on-one, and how your family works together better as a unit when you have a meal and sit down and talk to each other for 15 minutes. I mean, it's kind of obvious things, but it really does seem to make a difference. I mean, a lot of people have really felt supported and really benefited from talking to other adults and just having a chance to vent or share ideas with other parents.
I actually volunteered for the second cycle.
The kids really enjoy it too, and you could see from beginning to end, at least within that kid time, that some of the behaviors we saw in the beginning we didn't see
So this is just the last quote, and this is just more kudos to the team here. They truly were the glue that held the program together. They all would have shown up again the week, developing a relationship would be difficult. I attended myself, at least for a little bit of the time, just to pop in and say hey, and 3 or 4 times, and it just felt kind of like just a big family event, and it was just very well run. It wasn't directed as much as it was just collaborative, and we're all here for the same reason. Just an enjoyable time.
I think there were at least 2, if not 3 families who had participated in FAST when they were a child.
Wow. How many families participated?
We had 9 participate and 8 graduate. If they graduate, you have to attend 6 of the 8 sessions to graduate.
And that's something too that comes up is that's a short time. And the idea is you're building capacity, for the long term. Not,
Plus, there's the FAST Works too, which is for the families who graduate to continue to meet on their own once a month and do some type of activity together to keep those relationships going.
Some of the FAST data that they showed us was that if families are struggling, or I guess to just strengthen families, that having social interactions, especially for moms, having a good social network with people around them is more effective than attending parenting classes even. Feeling supported in your community and having people that you can go to is more beneficial than even sending them to some sort of parenting classes. So this is a good way to increase this.
so again, I just want to thank three of them for facilitating a great program. We hope and plan to continue it next year in the fall, and I think we've already got some people interested in signing up. Any questions for us?
Just add that one of the future pieces we'll be looking for is to see if we can't build some community partnerships that might want to support the FAST program, either by supporting the cost of a meal that's prepared by the parents, or by potentially gifting a basket of gifts for the kids and parents. Might be a great way for each business to maybe take a piece of this program and really show true community support. But I've been very appreciative of the results and the efforts to make a commitment to really bring families and schools together. I think it was an important piece. I do have a congratulations certificate. I think some of you know that these were coming, but if not, Mineral Point Elementary School, in partnership with the school district, the FAST program has completed and met all criteria to achieve the FAST site certification. So this is something for the elementary team. And there is one for all of the approved teams in that cycle have at least 50% of the following eligibility team members, which means they were attending on a regular basis, participated in the trainings, and ran a successful program. So again, I'd like to just recognize Carla Rand, Program Coordinator, Paula Schutte, Parent Partner, Julie Pompos, School Partner, Melissa Dasher, Community Partner, and Clark Bennett, Community Partner. So thank you all very much, and I'm happy to give you a certificate. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Budget timeline.
Just sharing the budget timeline as we continue to move forward in our budget preparation. I just want to update the board quickly. We have solicited requests from teachers with regards to their instructional needs, formative assessment needs, equipment, small capital purchases, and those have all been returned to the building principals. They've each been given a building allocation, and now we're trying to whittle down the budgets to make sure that they fit within our budget currently. We've looked at starting to roll over what we know about teacher salaries, compensation, benefits, and so forth. And we look to have a preliminary budget ready for review by the Finance Committee on April 23rd. I believe it's a Monday. We have that meeting scheduled, and it's corresponds with the last day of the current board and the first day of the new board coming forward. So for the new board members that are there, we'll induct them formally so that they're ready for their first meeting in May. But it gives us both an opportunity to kind of pass the baton. Those that are stepping off the board have a wealth of information and knowledge over the years about budgeting and can help transfer that knowledge to the new board that will be picking up and carrying the new budget. So 6 6:30 PM. I think it's a regular scheduled time. I'll double check that on Monday, April 23rd. Invite anybody that would like to attend the April 23rd Finance Committee to see the budget for the first time. The board will give us some feedback at that time and help us to further shape the budget. It'll be in a really rough draft form, but it should be pretty complete at that point. And then we'll carry it forward into the May meeting, where it'll be the first official public viewing of the preliminary budget that would get final approval in June. And that will carry us through the summer months, so we can carry on with business until we do a final budget in September and October. So just a quick update on the timeline. If you have any questions, let me know.
Items for action.
Policy 334 is a policy that reviews curriculum and instruction. And it's a policy that I don't believe we've done an official board report in the past. But we'd like to start that annual tradition by just reviewing the classes and courses that are being offered, which ones are electives, if there's any new courses or any courses that are being removed. And so Mitch has prepared for you a report. It has two pieces onto it. The first is the graduation requirements, so that you can see what those requirements are. The second is the master course list, and the items that are starred are the electives courses, and the other ones are core courses. And so I will ask Mitch to jump up and just maybe give a brief overview if need be. Do you have a copy? And if you have any questions for Mitch or I, we are able to answer them for you.
If you look on the very first page of this course tallies where there's asterisks, several of these courses are in here because they have a tie to something in Skyward in the past, so we can't just go in and delete them, even though those courses aren't necessarily ones that we're offering or allowing kids to select from. You have the three on the very first page, which are kind of a college kickstart, the Southwest Tech speech, Intro to Psych, and then there's the UW Platteville Literature class. All three of those are earning college credit for students that stay in the building and take this through telepresence. So then really you get to the bottom of the third page where it starts with small animal, and those are classes that we would allow students to select from. Those classes are Mr. Robinson's Animal Vets area, and then it kind of goes through. So anything with an asterisk is something that would be deemed an elective for students. Some of the classes that are on this sheet this year won't be on next year's sheet. There'll be a couple of different, so it's classes that we've run in the past, and especially in the area of electives, it's something that might be offered on an every other year basis. And then what you have, the thicker packet, academic graduation requirements for Mineral Point. And then the following page talks about what it is for universities. They would ask for 4 English, 3 math, 3 science, 3 social studies. And then you have what we offer. Basically, it's the course description booklet that students can go through, included, by area, language arts, math, science, social studies, and things that we would offer through the Boost Consortium or telepresence courses near the back. Those are courses that we might offer to students, or other school districts in the Boost Consortium would allow our students to take. And again, those students would be taking them here in-house. They're not having to drive anywhere. This year we are not taking any classes for telepresence through the Boost Consortium, but we are offering up AP Calc to a student in Highland and Psych to another student from Highland, and we have 2 instructors that are offering those classes here in-house.
Can you explain in this first document, what's there on the top, and what are these columns doing? The estimated SEC?
Estimated, this is, the Skyward puts that out, estimated number of sections. So if you look, it would say, there's, for Southwest Tech speech, estimated section would be 1. The next column, number of seats available. Okay. And then the REQ is the number of requests that we would have for that. So I would point out, if you look through here, you think, okay, so we're offering a class with only 5 students, or we're offering a class with 3 students. We're not offering those classes. We would be then sitting down with students and saying, look, there wasn't enough student interest to run that class this next year. Here are classes that we are offering. So we take this, we call it our tally sheet. We take a tally sheet based off of student requests and try to formulate a schedule knowing, okay, yeah, we're not offering that class because it has 3 students in it.
So this doesn't reflect the number of students taking the classes then?
No, these are simply the requests. So if I go down to the bottom of the 3rd page, and that's where Mr. Robinson's classes are. Greenhouse management, there's 6 kids that requested that class. So more than likely, we will not offer greenhouse, and we'll call those 6 students in that wanted that class and say, there wasn't enough interest for you to have this class in 18-19. Here are the classes that have enough interest for Mr. Robinson. Do you wish to get one of these classes? You know, they give us maybe a couple of alternative classes, but we're pushing forward to try to get those students in here before the end of the school year to say, yeah, here's what I want instead. Okay, that class doesn't run this year, I can't take it.
Do you know, are there any additions or subtractions from the curriculum from this year to next?
No, nothing new, if that's what you're asking. There aren't any new courses being offered. Anything that was in here has been a class that's been previously approved by the school board. It's something we've offered in the past and maybe not run because of that level of interest. But it's everything in here has been had prior approval.
So no new AP classes?
No. There's an AP government class that was approved, and that was, you approved it a year ago, running at AP US History and AP Government on an alternate year basis. So US History is coming off and government's coming on, and we'll continue to rotate that back and forth.
Do you know, Mitch, how we compare with our counterparts, AP classes?
In schools our size, I mean, I think, you know, I think Adagio probably offers maybe a couple more AP courses in-house. We have the Boost alternative. I know Pecatonica offers a couple of AP. And some of the Boost schools offer the same AP courses we do. So, I mean, we can, in-house staff members, I have 3 staff members that are offering AP classes. But because we can pick up some more through the Boost Consortium, you know, we've kind of expanded our opportunity for kids to pick up another AP course here or there.
If a student requests an AP course, you at least try to accommodate
to the best
through a college course like we've seen, which is becoming more popular, of course, right?
Yes.
You don't take, those aren't AP.
They're not AP courses.
An AP course, if you take the course, take the exam, and score at least a 3 on the exam, then you will be awarded some college credit. Maybe.
That's an AP course.
Advanced placement.
You can take them on the Wisconsin Virtual School, which has a whole list.
Yeah, and that's in the thicker packet as well, offerings to
And
them.
the students can pick whatever they want out of that. I have a question on AP government. If a student takes that, can they take that instead of SIG? Seems like taking those 2 would be.
They're not similar. An AP curriculum is pretty prescribed, straightforward. Here's what it is. The SIG class was created how many years ago?
At least 25.
Okay. It was created because of a lack of our students understanding their role in government, I believe is the part of the justification behind why that SIG class was put in place. And then I don't know at what point in time, prior to my arrival, at some point in time it was decided that it was a required class for all seniors. But an AP course, an AP government course, might not necessarily cover the same topics that social issues in government that SIG class would cover.
How do you gauge if your kids are college ready, Mitch, your seniors?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because in the strategic plan, talking about future-ready skills, there are some indicators, the number of math credits taken, the type of grade that they've gotten in those math classes, what upper-level math classes have they taken, what's their GPA, are they involved in co-curriculars and those kinds of things. So that's information we'll be tracking through my office as we move forward, that kind of follows the academic or college and career ready.
I'm serving on a statewide board of superintendents. It's kind of an ad hoc group that is working to redefine what college and career readiness looks like. And it's a group of about 30 superintendents across the state that said that there's more to it than just a state report card. It does give you some measures of how we're doing and how well we're accountable to our counterparts, but there's so much more to making sure a kid is college and career ready. And some of those things that we have looked at are those other things like organization and perseverance and grit and determination and those kinds of things that also make you college ready, in addition to the content area. And so we've looked at some ACT products that are new and coming out that will help us to gauge that and build some plans around those other things that are what make a good student. But we're not just talking about college ready, we're also talking about career ready, because a lot of students go right into the trades. We want to make sure that they have the skills to be ready for working or getting a 2-year degree and then moving into the workforce. So we are in the process of literally trying to redefine that as we go forward. I think we're on the cutting edge because we're one of the schools that are at least investigating it and looking at it. So part of what we're trying to do is capture how many AP classes do we offer, how many get a 3-year better, those kinds of questions then also allow us to compare to other school districts that are starting to do the redefining college and career readiness initiative. And we can start to do some comparisons, because nobody's really done that crosswalk yet. We continue to compare ourselves to ourselves and improve upon that. But I think once we have more data out there available to us, we can start to create some benchmarks and some action plans that says, okay, we are either leading the pack or behind the pack, and we need to figure some things out. We've done some investigation and some exploring. Annie spent a day down at Darlington, for example. They have the full suite of Project Lead the Way, which is an opportunity for us to engage about how are they making that work in a school of similar size. So we can do some of those other investigations around readiness as we continue to explore further.
Do we survey our seniors, our outgoing seniors?
We have. Yeah.
Okay, good.
On what, whether they're college ready or?
How well they felt they were prepared for college readiness, and how well, specifically more around language arts and mathematics, but also did they feel safe, and some of these other questions as they're leaving.
So, yeah, I was just gonna say, they do it as they're exiting and not after they've done a semester in school.
We've done it in the past, as they are exiting. We've also had some recent surveys about once they were 5 years out, we've tried to capture as many students so they can look back and say, okay, how well was I prepared? They've also done it, we've got some survey data about after their first year, how well did they feel they were prepared? We were using a survey company to help us track the kids down again because they're in a lot of different places. We haven't resubscribed to that because we've had other priorities, and we felt we got the information we needed on the baseline to kind of give us some indicators about what we need to do better. It's something we can continue to do, and we can certainly survey the kids locally before they leave. It's just hard to pull the time together to survey them after they've been out for a year or 5.
And to your point on AP, Luke and I just sat in the meeting last week, and one of the comments within the meeting was, UW-Madison takes a 3 on an AP exam and awards college credit. But UW-Richland wants a 5. So, the thought that UW-Richland has more rigor and a higher expectation when it comes to the AP exam than UW-Madison has, it's dependent on what university the students decide they want to go to after they write an AP exam.
Thank you.
No other questions?
Thank you.
I can take that very.
Business services. Review credit card statement of activity. bills payable, do we want to approve them together? Do we have a motion?
A couple questions on the bills, 2 questions.
Motion.
Okay.
What's the criteria?
The second, right, Jeff? Sure.
What's the criteria when we take a bus for sports? Regional, sectionals, state, or what?
Vicki?
What was that, man?
What's the criteria when you get a coach bus for high school sports?
There probably isn't, I would say, criteria. It's if a booster club puts it together and requests a coach bus.
The school only pays for.
The school only pays for
school
what it
bus
would
cost.
cost us to take a school bus to that event.
$800 is what? That would cost school bus?
No, I think that.
No, that was the total cost. We only paid what it would cost us to take a
That's
school
what I
bus.
thought they did.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody else paid part of that $800?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. And there's one more, page 86, Gaber DeBoer Construction.
Jim is the one that did the construction work at the elementary secure entrance.
That was pre-approved of it or not?
That was pre-approved, yes.
Okay, that's all I got.
I had a question. CISA 3 supplies, $6,500.
Of course,
This is special education, it's the SEEDS program at 1900. It's the E4E School Improvement Services, the Initial Education Licensing Program. So this is part of our CISA contract. They just have gotten either around to billing this either, it looks like the full cost of those services, but that was part of our initial approved CISA budget. We had about, I can't remember the total CISA contract that we approved, but this would have all of those sub-parts of that contract. Yeah. Yeah, it's the third installment of their quarterly billing, so you'll see one more like that. So it's gonna be roughly 40,000 plus.
Gas is for the bus, is that a bid contract?
That has been a bid contract in the past, we haven't bidded it out recently, but yes, that has been a bid in the past, so we certainly could look at redoing the fuel contract if you're interested, put that out.
I think we should maybe,
It's been a few years, so it's probably right for a request for a proposal.
Somebody may want to.
Yeah, but, you know, we did get a couple bids back the last time we did it, and there's, you know, with only 2 or 3 vendors in town, we like to stay local when we can, but every once and again, it's great to have people sharpen their pencil and make sure we're getting good pricing for fuel, so. We do that for not only just our buses, but also we purchase our own fuel for the buses under our contract. But we also have vans that are utilized throughout the district, and that's also where our equipment will be fueled up, and the pickup trucks and so forth. So we'll look at putting out a proposal for that and bring something back for the board to approve.
What's been the opinion on the new doors, Matt?
Overall, pretty positive. Kids have actually said they like them. One thing I've noticed about in the building, the kindergarten wing is right next to those doors. And so instead of trailing down maybe to the office to get something checked, they go right to the bathroom. So it kind of helps with traffic in the building, which I did not, I guess, anticipate. Kids just kind of interpreted just, oh, cool, It definitely takes some pressure off the office staff. When they're buzzing people in, they just don't feel like they've got to vet everyone, make sure that, because it's so hard to see their faces at times.
Right.
They can bring them in, no one can just walk through anymore, so that level of security is helpful.
Do we have a lock still in the outside door?
Yep, we're doing both right now.
And the new doors have a lock on them?
Correct. So a parent came in, just doing a tour of the building, they're thinking about open enrolling in the future, and noticed them, just asked, is all schools this secure? So I don't think so, but newer schools would obviously have those in place already, so they notice it, and no one's complaining. It's just getting used to when a kid comes in for like a Band-Aid or something, you gotta unlock the doors and run back through. So we're getting the hang of it.
Just a public thank you. I know you mentioned Jim Gabor. He was the only person that put a bid on this project. After we put it out the first time, there was nobody that responded locally or other. Jim came in as a second round of proposals and was able to do this project. Most were out till summer. He was able to get it done over spring break, and I've heard a lot of comments about how well it matched the existing structure interiorly. And to stay in the color of the wood, it just looks like it's always been there. For those that didn't know it, probably wouldn't know any better. So I think he did a great job. I just want to thank him, appreciate his work out of Platteville. Related, the state of Wisconsin is putting together a grant for safe schools. The grant parameters haven't been released yet, but the Attorney General is now taking information from schools that would like to apply for the grant. I think they're trying to get a sense of how many and what's the need, then they'll determine maybe how much funds to put into that. So I have received a letter from Senator Markline and Senator Urbanbach to put that information into the Attorney General. And I think our front entrance here at the high school would probably be our next most largest opportunity to create safe schools. And we have a rough number from that from some of our preliminary work. So I will be contacting the Attorney General to request that as a possible proposal that we would write a grant for later. But it gives him an idea of what's out there, and maybe we can get some relief at our high school as well, and middle school entrance.
So that includes what was just done at the elementary, it could?
It would not, because it's, it could potentially, I don't know if that would still qualify or not, because it was done before the grant was released. So I'm not sure if it's retroactive, but they are looking for projects that can be completed prior to the start of the 18-19 school year. And you have to work with your local law enforcement agency to ensure that it truly is going to enhance safety and security in the building.
Can you add something for the space between the building and the?
We could also add that, and I guess the question is if the board had a priority between the two, which would you rather see? I believe that it's not going to fully fund everybody's request. I think it's going to be based on the amount of requests, the type of need. So we may get a partial reimbursement or a prorated reimbursement back based on the amount of requests they receive. So if we had to prioritize those two, I'd be interested to know if the board had a priority. We can put that on a future agenda item for discussion.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Basting.
Abstain.
Bush.
Yes.
Dolphin.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Steph.
Yes. Motion carried.
Yes.
Approval of purchases over 5,000.
One is for Book Source, which is basically just what it says, is purchasing books at the elementary level across all of our grade levels. The total amount is $10,257. These are, Matt, you want to speak to this particular requisition?
This is all coming out of Title I. So this year, their first year school-wide. So that means that every kid can have access to Title I federal dollars, for literacy and mathematics. The reason I guess I didn't, every teacher was making their own order, and I just didn't, put together that it would be over 5,000. But we had someone come in during PD day, and they set up a whole display, and teachers could come in, and we had just had some professional development on how to use authentic text to teach reading and writing skills. So then they can go and pick books out, and this is what they wanted. So this allocation's already been budgeted for, and coming all out of federal dollars.
These are all books for their individual classroom libraries.
Correct. The teaching tools, they'll be on display for the kids to read. Thousands of new books come up, published every year. We want to keep the high interest type of text in front of the kids and keep them wanting to read.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Motion by Julie, second by Jeff. Any discussion? Roll call.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Basting.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Dolphin.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Steph.
Yes.
The other item that's an addition of 5,000, I reported to the board that upon our return from spring break, we did learn that the elementary cooler compressor had stopped working. We did lose a little bit of product out of the cooler at that time. There is a couple proposals that we've been looking at to get replacement costs, one from Thermodynamics, which is $68.50. The other proposal is from Madigan Refrigeration Systems.
And that one was just added today, Roger just got that Madigan, so it's not in your packets.
So we have, and I have not looked at this yet because this was loaded prior to, just simply prior to my arrival. So I don't know if that's an all-in cost of the 55 plus the 26. Does that equal this?
Those two are comparable to the thermodynamic bid.
Okay. So we'll do some additional review of this, but because we only meet monthly, we're just need to know in concept if we want to replace the coolers or not. There would be, in full transparency, roughly another couple $1,000s in electrical work that would be needed in addition to this project to get these fully operational. So the all-in number will probably be slightly in excess of that. But I'm pretty confident in these two numbers being less than 10,000. So maybe a blanket not to exceed number, and if it exceeds, I have to come back to the board. But it would give us the opportunity to put in a cooler after we do some additional vetting of the two vendors, make sure we have comparable products, and they can do the job in a timely manner. Right now, we are limping along with some makeshift coolers. We have received a partial cooler from the milk company to put some of our milk in for the daily milk breaks, and then we've kind of reshuffled some of our Pepsi coolers around. We've got them kind of, basically what they do is they cool lunches in preparation for reheating. Sure. And so we're making do for right now, but even if we were to do some remodeling in the elementary school, we would probably be a full year out before we would do anything of any substantial nature to include a project like this. I think it's something that, regardless of what we decide to do or not do at the elementary, we need to move forward with a solution for the rest of this year and probably most of next year. Just on an aside, I mentioned the freezer compressors of a similar age, and so that's something else that we'll have to be watchful of. We don't have a plan to preventively replace that, but it is probably, I'm going to guess, 50 years old. They no longer make parts to repair it, so that's why we have to replace.
I was shocked when I found out it was water cooled. Those are like ancient.
Yeah.
When I called Madigan's, they were like, "Billy, they got water cooled." I'm like, "Yeah." So, I mean, when you get into the electrical, it is what it is. When you start repairing that stuff, you know, it really shouldn't exceed 10,000, but if you come out to 11,000, you don't have a choice. So I'll make a motion to go ahead and fix. You gonna decide which company or?
Yeah, I think we need to do, I'm not prepared to make a recommendation today, but I did want to, and thanks Jeff for bringing the second vendor to us. We were not aware that Madigan is somebody they use at the store, so that's helpful for us to have a compare and contrast. I would personally like to do a little more homework, but I did want to get this in front of the board so we can move forward with the project over the coming days and weeks. And if you're not feeling comfortable,
These are good.
okay, that's all I need to know. We'll continue to vet it with Roger.
Madigan's are better, but.
Okay.
No, they're not.
So will they replace these with water chill compressors again, Jeff, or will it be refrigerated?
Well, it's one of the bids. Honestly, I would get rid of the water if it was me, but I think it's probably treated water so that it won't freeze. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
So you moved without a
I shall
dollar?
withdraw it, 'cause
Oh,
Luke wants to investigate a little more. I just thought you needed.
but I think he's looking for a motion for either up to a certain threshold or just to repair it at his.
Yeah, I know it's hard to say sight unseen, and we don't have another meeting scheduled, and we could put something back in, in a couple days and come back again, but we're here, and we've got two rough quotes of what it's going to cost to replace. Because this just came in this afternoon, we just haven't had the time to really look at it. So, not to exceed number or just approval to replace, and then I'll report back the actual cost so that you have accountability that it was done with.
I'll make a motion to replace.
The elementary school, okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Julie. Any other discussion? Question I have, Jeff, we could just pick one of these vendors and then the electrical part of it certainly would fall under 5,000, you know.
And Madigan's always use local.
They do.
They always call
Okay.
Troy or whoever.
Looks like the difference is the flashing is included in the top one. Or not included in the top one, and included in the bottom.
Yeah,
Flashing
those-
and sealing and the piping through the roof.
Gotcha. Those are the things we'll have to tease out and get, you know, true apples to apples, and we'll do that promptly and prudently.
Roll call.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin.
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson. Yes. Stefas.
Yes.
I would just mention, I would definitely put that brazier on your next whatever, because, yeah, if that one goes, the other one's gonna go not long after, let me tell you. Oh, yeah, I just lost one too.
Okay. Thank you.
Employee services.
We did have a budget amendment that was added late, and so this was not in the board packet on Thursday. Marcia got this to me today. She's in the process of starting to reconcile budgets to try to get accounts to clean up. This is a fairly normal procedure in school districts. What you'll see is the amounts in the accounts that they're amending from and the amounts in the accounts they're amending to, and then those numbers balance money out, money in, but because they're crossing over a function, they need to have board approval per DPI rule. So this is, again, something that I've looked at, and I agree that these accounts need to be reconciled, and I would recommend approval.
I'll make a motion. Motion by Jeff, for a second.
I'll second.
A second by Larry Dolphin. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin.
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes. Does that conclude?
That does conclude. Thank you.
All right. Employee services.
Employee services, we do not have an approval of new hire. I did have it as a placeholder in case we were ready to recommend a director of people service and or school psychologist position. We are moving along in our process. It's been a good process to date. We are now in the location of creating reference checks and doing due diligence to make sure that our candidates are who they say they are, and that'll take another few days. But the process continues to move forward, so just wanted to give you an update on the new hire. And then we do have an approval of a voluntary retirement, and if there's any discussion, I would recommend the board move into a closed session to discuss performance and related contracts.
Motion to go to closed session.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jeff to go into closed session, second by Larry Dolphin.
It does take a roll call vote, but before we do, it would be appropriate for the new board, if you so invited them to join us, that would be an appropriate way to start that transition process. They're obviously not able to vote, but they could hear the conversation in closed session.
What's the board's wish?
Seems appropriate.
All right. New board members are included in closed session if you wish.
Yeah.
That's voluntary.
You have
No, go ahead, I'm fine.
the elementary, so I suggested.
So everybody was in favor of that, yes?
Yes.
Yes.